Hello, hello all. We have Nilu or Salim. We will introduce about this. Good morning, Nilu. Can you kindly introduce about this?
Well, am I audible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Thank thank
Subin, can you switch off the mic, please? I will also.
Good morning, everyone. The speaker for today's session is Dr. Deepak Ranjan Naik. Dr. Deepak Ranjan Naik is currently working as an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering in Malaviya National Institute of Technology, Jaipur. He has about 25 journal publications, 7 conference publications, and 2 book chapters to his credit. He serves as a reviewer for many peer-reviewed journals such as IEEE Transactions on Circuits and Systems for Video Technology, IEEE Transactions on Neural Networks and Learning Systems, IEEE Transactions on Artificial Intelligence, to name a few. His research interests are medical image analysis and classification, machine learning, computer vision, deep learning, and pattern recognition. We welcome you, sir, to this session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the kind introduction and a very good morning to all of you. So can you check Nilu that whether my voice is audible or not? So
Voice is audible.
okay, can you just now check whether now it is clear, right? Okay, thank you so much. So let me share my screen fast, then I'll start. Yeah, so I have already shared my screen. Can somebody check and tell me that whether my screen is visible or not?
No, sir, it's not visible. In the other group, it is not visible. You have to
Okay,
present.
okay, okay, okay. I have to present in both the links. Eh?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, I understand. Mhm.
This echo is coming. Subin, what he has to do? Reduce the mic volume.
I hope if there are so many,
Echo is
part-
coming.
yeah, yeah, there are so
Please
many
switch
participants
your
who
volume.
have. I think there are so many participants who have switched on the mic. So if they will switch off the mic, I hope this problem will not occur. So I request all the participants to please switch off your mic. I could see there are few who have switched on their mic. Okay, so now I have shared my screen. Can you just check that whether my screen is visible or not, or am I audible clearly or not, so that I can progress? Okay, thank you so much. Yeah. So once again, a very good morning to all of you. So the topic which I was given is like classification and regression. So I will try to cover the idea behind this classification and regression today. So for that I need some prerequisites. So to first I will discuss some prerequisites, whatever is required to evaluate a classification model. So I'll first discuss that one and some related terms. Maybe some of the terms already discussed by Professor Umarani. So I must thank Professor Umarani for inviting me. Thank you, madam, for inviting me and for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much. Yeah. So I'll start discussing classification, of course, today. But before that, I would like to discuss something. What do you mean by this learning? In my view, right? So the nature of this talk, the next two talk will be semi-technical. I have put it intentionally semi-technical talk and intermediate level. I have tried to keep as much simple as possible. The slides are so we'll see it. And the prerequisites which are required to understand or to design a classification model or to design any machine learning model or any artificial intelligence model are nothing but linear algebra, which you already know, the probability theory, which you already know, the statistics, which you already know. So these are the prerequisites which are required to understand the mathematical concept behind this machine learning models. And one of the machine learning model is a classification model. Classification is a type of problem. Fine. Fine. And the most important thing which is required.
Deepak sir,
I could see some echo sound in the background.
can you reduce your system volume, sir? Can you reduce your system volume?
Okay.
I think it is echoing.
Yeah, sure.
Looping in. Reduce your system volume a bit.
Yes, sure. Now, how is it?
Reduce more. Reduce more. Reduce
Hello.
more.
Hello.
Reduce your system more. Reduce your volume more. Reduce your volume more.
Right now. Right now. Is it fine?
Reduce it to zero. Mute it. Completely mute it.
It's fine right now.
Okay. The echo is still there, I think. Okay.
I think.
Speak, sir.
Can you just check whether all have? Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay.
How is it right now? Is it okay?
It's better. This is better. It is better.
Oh. Okay. Then.
If possible, mute your
then let me-
system sound.
Oh. Will that work? I don't know. Okay.
Actually, only your this thing
Is it
output
okay right
matters.
now?
Input. It's perfect. Okay, it's perfect.
No, I could not hear anything. If I'll mute.
Okay. Okay. One minute. Yes. Perfect.
I think the problem is not this one. The two different links. I think.
Or 2 mics.
So how is it right now? Some of the participants are saying it's fine only.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So shall I start? Yeah. Please let me know if any type of inconvenience will occur. Okay, so as I mentioned that what are the prerequisites are required in order to design a machine learning model, or maybe that model can be used for a classification problem, and we'll also see what exactly a classification problem is. I think Professor Umarani has already discussed also yesterday what's a classification problem. And today we'll see some different or more examples of the classifications, and also we'll discuss something called as a k nearest neighbor classifier. Yesterday madam has discussed one the widely used classifier called as neighbor bias classifier. So today I will be discussing one more classifier which is a nearest neighbor based classifier. Also we'll see that how many classifiers exist till date in the world or in the literature, and out of that then how will you know that which classifier you will decide for a given problem, right? So that is also always a concern, that which classifier will fit for your problem. We'll see it. And as I mentioned that there are three different things which is required to understand the mathematical concept behind this machine learning model is nothing but linear algebra, probability theory, statistics. And the most important thing is the implementation. So without implementing any machine learning algorithm, you cannot feel what is happening. You cannot even predict what is exactly happening inside this model. So programming is must. Any programming languages, yes, either MATLAB, Python, or whatever it may be, but Python is preferable always because most of the companies are right now preferring these languages, and but it is very easy. It is not like C and C++. Also I will show you how difficult it is, or for a given a problem, how difficult it is to write a program using C and C++. We'll see it. So I'll start my discussion today with the learning. So if we discuss what is the learning and how we learn ourselves, so then we can easily understand what is the classification. Everything is interrelated. So then I will start our discussion with learning. So let us discuss what do you mean by learning. So to understand the concept of the learning, I'll ask you a fundamental question. So can you recognize these two images? So the answer is quite obvious, and you will also tell her why sir is asking this type of question. Everybody knows the answer, right? And the images on the left hand side is nothing but the Statue of the Unity, which is there in Gujarat. Is the statue of the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and the statue on the right hand side is nothing but the statue of the Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. So can you recognize, my question is, can you recognize these images? Yes, the answer is obvious. Yes, we recognize it. But if I ask you another question, but how do you recognize it? So can you answer me that how do you recognize it? Have you ever asked yourself this question? So the answer is either you have seen these images, these type of images somewhere, maybe in some book, maybe in some blogs, maybe in the newspaper, or your family members, your parents have shown you these images, like they have shown us the images of the cat, dog, tiger, and slowly you could able to recognize the difference between a cat and a tiger, right? Although there are some patterns which are pretty similar for cat as well as tiger. Or else you might have seen in your lifetime, maybe you might have met Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, but you have unknowingly, so knowingly or unknowingly, when you see some new object in the world, so unknowingly the patterns, the unique features, the unique descriptors from those images, from those objects are captured and embedded in your brain, and which is already there in your brain. So next time when you see an image which is pretty similar to the image whatever you have already experienced, whatever is there, which is already fit on your brain, so next time when you see these type of images, it suddenly captures some descriptors. Within a very small time you could able to recognize, yes, this is an image of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, although you have not seen the exact image of this Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. So see how much intelligent the human beings are. So God has given this power to us that we can easily recognize whatever the object we have seen. So unknowingly, some patterns, some descriptors have already extracted or derived and fit in your brain. So what we want over here? So what we want is we want our machine to do the same task whatever we are doing. So we are learning. So we are learning from the experience. We are learning from the experience means we have seen some examples of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam before. So that's why we could able to recognize now, right? But human brains are so intelligent. Human brains is a parallel processor. So we have this power to recognize it. So what we want, we want our machine to be intelligent. We want to build an intelligent machine which can do the task, right? So this is what the goal of this machine learning is. And to make you understand that what exactly the origin of the machine learning is, it lies that in very early efforts of understanding the intelligence like we did right now. So what exactly intelligence is the intelligence is the capability to acquire the knowledge and apply the knowledge, right? That's what intelligence is. And this is what the definition of this machine learning is. So if I give you this type of problem to you, can you write a simple C or C++ program, whatever you know? Can you write a program to recognize these two images? Can you think of writing a C and C++ program? So it is pretty difficult because we don't know sometimes that how it is done our brain, right? How it is done in our brain. So we don't know. So if you don't know the logic exactly, then how will you write the code, right? So even if you are having a good idea how to do it, the program definitely might be extremely complicated or very large. So instead of writing this type of program, complex program, so what machine learning algorithm says is collect some samples like we learn. Human beings learn from the examples, learn from the samples, whatever is there. So for that, what we want over here is that our machine should be intelligent. So how will make a machine intelligent? So for that, we have to provide some samples to our machine. Like we learn, we will also try to mimic the same thing like we did, right? So for that, what we'll do is we'll collect some of the examples. Let's say in the case of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, we want to simply classify two images into two different categories. One is Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel images category and one is Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam category. So we have to collect some samples, number of samples from both of these categories, and we have to pass it to the model. The model will learn, the model will generate, and finally a model will build. So a model will build, and then we'll test the model with some test samples. That also I'll discuss later on what is training and testing, and also how to measure whether a model is good or not. That what is called as performance measure, right? So how will you test, or how will you know that which model is better than, let's say for a particular problem there may be 3 and 4 models, then how will you evaluate that which model is better? So for that we need some performance measure, right? That's what we'll discuss today in this first lecture. Fine. So as I mentioned that instead of writing a complex program, what we'll do is we'll simply collect the examples with the correct output, okay? Because we want to learn our machine. Initially we have to provide that this is the input for this output, this is the input for this output, and we'll provide these samples to the machine, and finally the machine will generate a model and will pass some unknown sample later on to the model, and that will decide that whether the that images whatever we are providing or whatever the data we are providing to the model will be of either of these one categories, whatever we have discussed now. But the program what we will write in machine learning will look pretty different from the program what we generally write, like addition program or other program, right? Because it may contains millions of numbers. If you're solving a problem using neural network, the neural network contains number of parameters, number of weight values, and you have to initialize those values, and later on you have to optimize, or you have to find some optimized value for that. So the program may look different from the program whatever you are generally writing. Fine. We'll discuss later on also. So this is just a Venn diagram. You can see people right now talking about so many buzzwords, right? Pattern recognition, machine learning, data science, data analytics, neurocomputing, data mining, artificial intelligence, deep learning. So this is I think everyone is related to everything, right? So machine learning, AI is the main umbrella under which machine learning is a subset, and deep learning again is a subset, right? So I will also show you at the end of this first lecture, I will show you one video that where we are and how deep learning and this machine learning are applicable in the real world applications. Also, I will show you some applications. I'll directly come to the focus point, that which is nothing but classification. So I think madam has already discussed the supervised, and I no need to discuss about the supervised and unsupervised learning once again. So I would like to just show you that for the classification, the main focus of today is coming under which categories, right? And what's the difference between a classification problem and a regression problem. So the example of a classification problem, given a set of data, you have to categorize into different classes, different classes, right? And the measure difference and the regression is like a forecasting problem, is a prediction problem, right? It's a prediction problem. Regression, dollar value prediction for tomorrow, rainfall prediction, anything, all prediction problems will come under these categories. The major difference between this classification and the regression is the output levels. The output levels in case of classification is always a discrete value, remember, and for regression it is a real value. So let's say we are classifying human beings of whether it is whether the human is or whether the person is an Indian person or a foreign person. So it's simple. You can put a value either 0 for one class or 1 for another class, or you can also write 1 for one class, 2 for another class. So it's always a discrete level, right? But for regression, we don't know what the value may be. What's the dollar value for tomorrow, right? So it will be definitely a real value. So that means the y value, if you look at the notations, whatever I have shown over here, x and y. So every data, we're talking about data right now, right? So data contains some features, so we call it as a descriptors followed by the output, because we are talking about the supervised learning algorithms. Output will be given to us, right? So x is nothing but the input sample, I mean the input descriptor, and y is nothing but the output. Fine. So the x can be of one dimensional, x can be of multiple dimension. So that means for solving a problem, x can be a single feature, I mean the dimension, the descriptor or the characteristics can be of one dimension or can be of multiple dimension. But in real life, one dimension may not be sufficient. We need multiple dimensions, and the dimensions are denoted as a symbol d over here. So x can be x, and here n represents one sample. So there are, let's say, capital N number of samples. So x1 is nothing but the first sample, the input sample, and y1 is the corresponding output one. Fine. And this output in case of classification will be a discrete value, and this output in case of a regression will be a real value or a continuous value, right? And unsupervised is not the focus of this talk, but it's unsupervised is pretty important. Sometimes it's very important. Unsupervised is nothing but the output will not given to you. You have to find some relationship between the input samples, or maybe you can categorize, you can group the inputs based on the similar characteristics among them, and we call sometimes it as a clustering algorithm or grouping of similar objects, right? So I'll just show you one example just to show you that what is a classification and what's a clustering problems. It is pretty easy to understand. So given a set of images, only you have to predict the label. So that's what the classification is. And clustering is, see, no output will be given to you, so you have to find the relationship between the similarity between the input samples, and finally you will come up with a set of clusters or a set of groups of similar objects. So if you can see, so dogs are of one groups, and cats, and then giraffes, right? But the thing is, it is sometimes easy for us to categorize into different groups, but it is difficult sometimes for the machine, because if you look at the images of the dogs, the dog looks pretty different to each other. The color of the dogs is totally different. The patterns on their body is also different, but still the algorithm could able to recognize the similarity among them. So this is what the challenge is. I will also show you some more challenges in this domain or classification. So this is what the classification and this clustering is. So we'll be focusing classification more on today, right? So I'll just now show you that structure, or you can say flow diagram, or a basic structure of a supervised or a classification model. That's it. Okay. So the input, if you look at this particular image which is there on your screen, this figure, so we just look at the data. So the data can be a text, the data can be any document, the data can be any image, the data can be a video, data can be sound, data can be anything, right? So initially what we do, I'm simply talking about the conventional machine learning stages, Okay, and the two only supervised learning algorithm. So given a set of data, what we have to do is we have to extract. The first step, the very first step is to extract some unique descriptors from the set of the patterns or from the set of the samples, whatever is given to us. So let's say the problem is simple. The problem is a classification problem, and the problem is to simply classify the image into two different categories, either cat or tiger. Fine. So then there are some unique features which is there in cat class. There are some unique features which is there in the tiger class. So then I have to find out that which feature we have to derive, or which descriptor, or unique descriptor I have to derive from those samples, so that it will be easier for the model to predict correctly, right? So the very first step is exactly the feature extraction, and so here there is a concern. That what type of feature you will extract. How do you decide that what type of feature you will extract and you will consider as a good feature, right? So this has been a major concern in this type of conventional machine learning models, and that's why people are looking for, right now people are looking at this deep learning algorithms, right? So and this is based on the experience. You need some expertise for that, some domain knowledge. You should have some domain knowledge, or you have to go through the literature carefully, that similar type of problems are already there in the literature, that what type of descriptor, whether it is a geometric descriptor, what type of feature you will consider, whether it is image transform based, whether it is neighbor based, or what type of feature will work for your model, that you have to decide by yourself, or based on some domain knowledge you can also decide. So this is the very first step in any machine learning model. So then there are some stages which I've not mentioned over here. I've just mentioned two vital stages of a machine learning model, and right now we're talking about supervised learning, right? So supervised learning. So whenever we are extracting the features, we do not require the help of these output levels. Fine. However, after extracting the features, we need the help of the classifier, the statistical classifier, or the machine learning model, or the machine learning algorithm, to come up with a solution, right? But while designing that, or while learning that machine learning algorithm, or while designing that machine learning algorithm, we need the help of the labels, because we are talking about the supervised learning. Okay. And after generating, or after building the model with the help of these labels and the feature vectors, whatever we have given to the model, so next time what we will do is, the model is already generated. Basically, whenever we build a model in machine learning, so whenever we are given a data set, we generally divide the data set into two sets. One is training set, one is testing set. Okay. So there should not be any match between training set and testing set. Match in the sense the intersection of the training set samples and the testing set samples should be fine. And the training set samples are used to build the model. However, the testing set samples are used to test the model, that whether the model is behaving properly on the unknown sample or not. So that is why in this row, if you look at the row where I have shown some arrow marks in green color, so my model is already built. Fine. My model is already built. So what I will do is, so next time I will provide a unknown sample to the model, and my model will generate some aspect or predicted label. Okay. So then I can easily verify that whether my model is behaving properly or not. Or if it is not behaving properly, then you can go back to the model and you can tune the model once again, and you can again check that whether the model is behaving properly or not. So that's what the structure of this machine learning model is. And supervised, why we're talking about supervised over here, because whenever we're designing the model, we are taking the help of the labels over here. But the difference between the supervised and unsupervised is pretty easy. If you look at, the labels are not there, because the labels are not provided in case of unsupervised learning. So there are few problems. Even so many companies or industries are working with some problems where they don't even know what's the label. So what they want to know is simply grouping of the similar elements, or grouping of the similar samples. So that is what one of the the problem is, or we are calling that problem is a clustering problem, which is coming under this unsupervised learning categories. So there are so many supervised learning algorithms exist in the literature. Even still, people are trying to develop some new algorithms. So here I have listed some of the algorithms, supervised and as well as unsupervised. So nearby, which Madam has already discussed yesterday. So K nearest neighbor, which I will discuss today, and there are also similar other algorithms based on different properties. I'll also show you later on that what are the different types of classifiers available in the literature. So this is support vector machine, decision tree. So all the classifiers whatever I've listed over here, so are based on some different concepts. The first one is a probability based, the second one is a nearest neighbor based. Okay, so then there is something called as a discriminant function based. By drawing a straight line or by drawing a hyperplane, can we able to classify the samples of the different classes or not? Right. So this is one of the example which I would like to show, that classification problem can be of different types. Okay, designing a classifier means sometimes it is a probability based classifier, sometimes it's a nearest neighbor based classifier, sometimes it's a discriminant function based classifier, which is the most important classifier till date, right? And what is the function or what's the job of this discriminant function based classifiers like neural network or support vector machine? Is to simply draw a line. So here the problem is a two-class classification problem. So if you look at the figure or the graph over here, okay, so there are two different features. I'm solving a problem right now, and the data in the data you could be able to find there are two features, which is nothing but a thickness and edge. The thickness here is nothing but the problem is a breast cancer problem, and here our job is to simply classify the sample into two different categories. One is malignant and another one is benign. So two different types of the cancers, right? So the feature can be one, as I mentioned, there can be a multiple features as well. So maybe one feature may not sufficient to solve a problem or to solve a real world problems. So here for simplicity, I have taken the number of features as 2 so that I can easily draw the point, because we know how easy it is if it is a two-dimensional point. And I can also easily show you in graph, right? So if you see, if you can see over here, the samples from both the categories or both the samples I have shown in two different markers. One is a cross and another one is a circle marker over here, right? So what I want to classify, I want to build. So what my supervised learning algorithm or my classifier model will give me. So what it will generate? It will ultimately generate a model, right? So what is the model over here? Now the model is nothing but a drawing a straight line. It will provide us a straight line that will help us to decide that whether a sample or an unknown sample will belong to that category or this category. Fine. So now how will you decide this straight line? So there can be infinite number of straight lines possible in between two different samples, or in between two different samples of different classes. But then which one you will decide, right? So that again depends upon the classification model you are using. Whether you are using neural network, whether you are using support vector machine or not. So in case of the neural network or SVM, we are always talking about y is equal to wx plus b, right? Y is equal to wx plus b, and y is nothing but the function, and this is the function. And these are the input sample or the training samples which are given to us, right? We want to predict a function, and here the function is nothing but a straight line, because I'm talking about a two-class classification problem, and which looks very or easily separable to each other. So what is the w in this case? We all know that the equation of the straight line is y is equal to mx plus c, where m is the slope and the c is the y-intercept, what m decides. And similarly, here we're talking about y is equal to wx plus b. X is the input, y is the output which you want to predict, and y is equal to mx plus c is the model, that is the straight line which you want to predict. So m and c both are the parameters, right? So these parameters need to be tuned or need to be optimized by using a classification model, right? So this W, the W over here defines the orientation of the hyperplane, and the C, the WX plus B, then the C and the B is nothing but the intercept, decides the position of the hyperplane. And if the value of the B will be 0, and that you all know that the line will pass through the origin, right? So this is just just the notion of the classifier or a discriminant function with a classifier. And once you develop the straight line, it's a two-dimensional problem. The data is of 2 dimensions, so that I could able to draw it, and I could able to show you using this graph. If the data is of multiple dimension, we call this straight line as a hyperplane, right? So after drawing this hyperplane, so the learning over here, or the training of a classification model, is nothing but drawing a straight line over here. But similarly, we'll also discuss one more classification problem today, which is nothing but a nearest neighbor based classifier. By looking at the nearest neighbors, it will decide the class level of a unknown sample. So there we'll discuss what is the meaning of an eager learner. We'll also discuss, okay, important points. So supervised learning, unsupervised learning, that we have already discussed. So every day in our daily life, we are using this supervised, unsupervised learning. We sometimes even we don't know whether we're using or not, because whenever you are opening your email, that's a classification. There is a classifier behind the problem, because it is saying, it is always classifying if there is something called a spam email or not spam email, right? So whenever you are opening Google News, okay, you can see that Google groups, okay, the news is into different groups, okay, and that is the concept of the clustering which Google is using. So every day, whenever you are purchasing something from the Flipkart, from Amazon, whenever you are watching some movies on the Netflix or in some other resources, so there is something, it always recommends us to do something, right? It always recommends us. So let's say last time we have purchased a similar item or an item, so next time it will show us, or it will recommend us that these type of items it will highlight in the website. So that means that is also an application, or the successful application of machine learning, you can say. And one more successful application also is nothing but optical character recognition, handwritten character recognition. Sometimes it is very, very difficult for us also to know that, because the writing style of every individual in the world is different, right? And the writing style of even a small a or capital A is different if you collect the samples from 1,000 or 100 persons. So it is sometimes easy for us to recognize, yes, it's A, but how difficult it will be for machine, right? So that is what the applications, there are so many applications. I will also show you some applications right now. This is related to images and videos, and it will be easier for you to understand. So what is an image? If you know somewhat about linear algebra, it will be easier for you. Linear algebra is must to understand machine learning algorithms, right? Because every time you have to handle the matrices whenever you will implement all the algorithms, because the data is already in the form of the matrices. Data contains some rows, some columns. In rows, the number of samples, in row, or maybe in the columns, number of features, or maybe the reverse one, right? So every time you have to handle, or you have to work with the matrices. So, and the image, whatever is given to us, so sometimes, and the images are nothing but what computers see as an image is nothing but an array, a two-dimensional array of numbers. Okay, so it's nothing but a matrix, contains some numbers, and the numbers depends upon the image, the type of the images you are using. So the images are basically of grayscale images, binary images, color images. Okay, so if it is a binary images, the pixel values or the values maybe 0 and 1, and if it is a grayscale image, those are the values lies between a range from 0 to 255, from black to white, right? So if it is a color image, so there will be 3 different planes for red plane, green plane, and blue plane, and the values will be lying between 0 to 255 only, but for one particular pixel. So finally, we can summarize here that image. So we are calling it as a digital image, right? Because after all, because the original image, whatever you are seeing is the analog one, but if you capture it using a digital camera, so it will become, and if you load it in a digital computer, so then it will become a digital image, and of course, so it's a digital image. So there are some processes which are required. There are some signal processing processes are there, so which are required to convert analog image into its corresponding digital image. So And this images contain some pixels, and each pixel is having two different things. Any pixel, if you look at over here, so any pixel in the image, and so any pixel, so every pixel contains two different things. One is the coordinate and one is the intensity value, is the color value. So this is just to tell you that how images are mathematically represented in a computer. So they're slowly moving towards a classification problem and some of the performance measures required to evaluate the classification problem. Right. So this is one of the classification problem which I would like to show you is nothing but an animal image classification problem. Animal image classification problem. Okay. So data can be anything. Just my favorite is always image. So I have taken image. So the data can be text, data can be sound, data can be videos, data can be signal, data can be anything. Okay. Anything. So here I'm just showing you the images as the input to the model. So here the problem is a 4-class classification problem, which you can easily see, and that can be extended to also 1000-class problem, right? So the classes are here nothing but, as I mentioned, all are animal classes. The tiger, giraffe, horse, and bear. So here there are some type. There are samples. There are samples in every row. If you can see the images of the tiger, if you can see. In every image, there are 5 different images in the first row, right? In every images, the position of the tiger is different. The size of the tiger is different. Okay, even in some figure, even in some images, if you see, there is a part of the tiger which is there. But still, how intelligent our brain is, you just see. How easy it is for us to recognize its tiger, right? But again, as I mentioned, that we want our machine to be intelligent. Our machine should do the same task like we do. We want to mimic, our machine should mimic the human beings, right? So, but there are some problems, even sometimes human beings find it difficult to solve the problem, and machine learning algorithms, interestingly, and the deep learning algorithms are the winners compared to the human beings, right? There are some problems. If I'll give you a very complex problem, so it'll be difficult because we do not have that much of patience to go through all the details of those images or the data. At that time, the machine learning will be the winner, and the machine learning will help us a lot, right? So similarly, so this is one of the just for simplicity, I've shown 4 different classes. So maybe you can add so many other classes over here, and the application can be of different types. The application can be, you can take an image from a satellite, and if you want to track that whether which type of animals is moving around the jungle. So if you want, so there are so many applications related to this animal image classification problem, collage. So there is something called a scene image classification. There is a scene image classification problem. You can see, so another type of classification, image classification problem. Collage. So another type of image classification problem, which is nothing but, if you can see, different images are there. Tall building. So for tall building, here the images are in the columns for different classes. So tall building, inside city, street, highway, coast, open country, mountain, and forest. So here I have taken only 7 classes or 8 classes. I hope it's 8 classes, right? So the number of the samples from each of these categories are represented in different columns, right? So now the question is, if you look at the classes like street and highway, sometimes it is difficult even for us to recognize or to classify which one is a street and which one is a highway, right? So then how difficult it will be for a machine to recognize or to classify these 2 different things. So we sometimes call this problem as a high interclass similarity problem. So there is a similarity between the classes, and this is again a concern. Okay, so our model should be a robust model, or the features, whatever will be, the very first step, as I mentioned, is nothing but the feature extraction in any machine learning model. So then what type of feature you will extract so that it can avoid this type of interclass. I'm not talking about intra, so I'm talking about interclass similarity. So there is an interclass similarity between street and highway over here. So I will also show you some other examples, right? So then how will you avoid this type of problem? How will you handle this type of problem? So then another type of problem is a very important problem is a medical image classification problem, which has been a recent trend, including the COVID-19. The COVID-19 what people are right now doing is it's a classification problem. People are applying machine learning model. So COVID-19, researchers have shown that CT scan images or the chest radiography images like X-ray and CT scan are very much helpful to detect whether the person is having COVID-19 or not, right? So they can easily decide that whether the person should go for quarantine or not, because the standard procedure is the RT-PCR procedure, what the doctors are following to decide whether the person is having COVID positive or not. That's a time-consuming process. But X-ray is a very fast one, so you can easily capture the images and you can load the images into your model, and the model will decide whether the person is having COVID-19 or not. So it's again a classification problem. Whatever the classifier, even Madam has discussed yesterday, the same classifier also you can apply on the data, on the COVID-19 data. So then you can easily decide that whether the person is suffering from COVID-19 or not. So this is the application, the recent applications of the machine learning and deep learning is. So similarly, there are other medical image classification problem, pneumonia classification problem, and the classification can be of two. I mean, the classes may be of two type or even multiple class. I mean, binary classification problem or multi-class classification problem. So binary classification problem in case of COVID-19 is whether the person is having COVID-19 or not. In case of multi-class, there are some properties of COVID-19 which are pretty similar to the pneumonia that you already know, whether it is bacterial pneumonia, whether it is other type of pneumonia. So then how will you classify the image? We don't know, because there are some characteristics of the symptoms of this pneumonia and COVID-19 is pretty similar to each other. So then how do you distinguish between this, again, pneumonia and COVID-19? Right? So again, there is an inter-class similarity between these two. So then in that case, the problem will be a multi-class classification problem, right? So maybe the classes are COVID-19, non-COVID-19, pneumonia, or maybe different types of pneumonia, right? So here I have shown you the two different, the images of two different classes, and these images are nothing but brain MRI images. So brain MRI images, MRI you might have heard about, the scanning or the imaging technology, medical imaging technologies basically used to, because the MRI is basically having or provides the excellent resolutions of the tissues, soft tissues, which is there in the brain or maybe other parts of the organ, other parts of the human being. So here the problem is a pretty simple problem. Just to given an MRI image, you have to decide whether that person is having any brain disease or not. Right? Any brain disease or not. I mean, it's a normal brain or abnormal brain. Again, if you consider it is a multi-class problem, then what type of brain disease the person is having? Okay, if it is abnormal brain, then what type of brain disease? Because brain disease is of various different categories. Maybe brain stroke, maybe brain hemorrhage, maybe brain tumor, whatever it may be. So that will become a multi-class classification problem. So multi-class classification problem is always a challenging one compared to the binary classification problem. That again depends upon the type of samples or the type of data provided to you. Right now, I would like to show you something called as the similarity, that large interclass similarity, right? So where is the challenge? So there is an interesting problem which I have picked up, is nothing but a food image classification problem, right? So food image, I will later on discuss also the applications of this, why we classify these food images. So there are some applications, very important applications, right? And yeah, I will discuss some recent applications of food image classifications later on. So the images whichever there is on your screen right now is pretty easy to classify or to distinguish that yes, the first one is banana, second one is orange, third one is egg, then banana, orange, grapes, like that. So it is very easy because the samples, each of these images contain one category samples, and it is pretty easy and it is clearly distinguishable, and we all know the class labels or the labels of these images, right? But right now I would love to show you two different categories. One is, if you look at, there are images in two different rows. One is Cappivo and another one is Americano. Cappivo is a kind of coffee basically served in Singapore and Malaysia, and Americano is a kind of coffee basically used in the United States, right? So now, if I will ask you to distinguish between these two images, or given, I will simply provide a coffee cup to you, then you have to decide whether this coffee is Coffee-O or Americano. How will you decide? It looks pretty similar to each other, right? The colors is similar, everything looks very similar. So how will you decide that whether it is Coffee-O or whether it is Americano? So this is where the challenge lies in. And this is where this machine learning and deep learning algorithm will help you to decide whether it's Coffee-O and Americano, because this is where even human beings get confused or faces some problems to even decide whether it is Coffee-O and Americano. So, and this type of problem is called as large interclass in between class similarity, right? And again, the type of coffee and the type of tea, and sometimes even we confuse with the type of milks. So these are some other examples of this similarity or large interclass similarity. And there are some cases. So then let us right now discuss what are the applications areas. What are the applications possible using this food image classification problem? So the applications can be of variety types. The first application in India, till date, I able to see only 1 or 2 articles based on this one, because it is not that easy. If you go to every state, the dishes are different, right? So what we can do is, and the image capturing of this food images is not that difficult like the medical images, like, because the medical images you have to capture the images using some equipment. So here you can capture the images even using the simple cameras, whatever we have, even from the mobile cameras as well, right? So the application can be, let's say, person from abroad or from outside came to India, and let's say he went to he wants to visit some places, maybe Jaipur, maybe Tamil Nadu, or maybe any places in the India, and they do not have any idea about the dishes whatever is serving in the local markets, or maybe in the hotels, or maybe in the restaurants. If they want to know everything about the details of the dish, what is the recipe, and what is the name, and where it is basically served, and which part of this India. So what they can do is, so we can build a model, we can prepare an app, and what they will do is, they will simply capture the photo and put it in that app. And what they will do, so they will simply, and what that app will tell is, inside that app, or there'll be definitely a machine learning model which will be running in the background, and what it will say is, yes, this the name of this dish is this thing, and that and then below that it will tell that in which part of the India this is particularly served, and what's the recipe of this. So this is one of the application of this, very important applications or recent applications of this machine learning. And what we are talking about, this artificial intelligence and deep learning is. And every time whenever you will solve a problem, real life problem, you will find some images having noises, having some problems like illumination problems, some rotated images, some occlusion. There will be some occlusion, if you can see over here. So your model should be that much robust to handle this type of issues. Or sometimes you may need the help of some pre-processing steps in order to get some good images, or before passing it to any feature extractor. So in machine learning, generally, as I mentioned, the very first step is feature extraction, but sometimes people used to apply some pre-processing techniques before feature extraction. Otherwise, the features whatever will be extracted from this type of images, which is there on the screen right now, if that feature extractor is not that much robust towards illumination, towards rotation, towards occlusion, so then it may not derive the significant features or the relevant features from the images, right? So that is why sometimes we need pre-processing techniques to pre-process the images or to enhance the quality of the images, and then you can apply some techniques or feature extraction techniques to extract some good features from the images. So this is what some of the applications are. There are so many applications of this machine learning and deep learning right now, but this is what the there are some important concepts, as I mentioned, which is called as large interclass similarity, that you have to focus whenever you will solve a problem. And one more thing I would like to just show you quickly, I will finish this one, and this is a multi-food items. So if you can see right now, previously every image was containing only one type of food, but right now one image contains a lot of varieties of food. So So multiple detection of multiple and recognition of multiple food item is again a challenging task. You have to first detect where is the different food items present in that image, and then what's the name of that food image. Again, it has some importance. What the importance? So I just last year, I think I was reviewing one paper, and that paper was a very interesting paper. So in that paper, they were claiming that they were counting the nutritions consumed by a person every day by fitting a camera in that home, in their home. So they what they did is they fit one camera on the dining hall, and that camera will capture the images on the dining table, and ultimately during night time when you go to the bed, it will tell that how much nutrition or how much protein or how much this you have taken or you have consumed today. So see where the world is moving. So this is really interesting. So machine learning and deep learning everywhere, if you can see. So multi-food recognition, so many other applications are there. So feature, as we have already discussed what you mean by this feature, the characteristics, the unique descriptors are represented always in terms of features, and these features are nothing but the mathematical representation of any data whatever is given to us, and this always is represented in terms of a vector for a particular sample. Okay, if it contains only single value, then it's a single value. If it contains multiple values, then of course it will be arranged in a fashion, in a correct fashion. We call this fashion as a vector, that you already know, which is what is a vector and what is a matrix, right? And every sample will be having a set of features, and we are storing it as a vector. If you can see on the screen right now, I have written x is equal to x1, x2 up to xd. Okay, the x is a sample, and x1 is the first feature. The second feature, I mean xd is the last feature. That means this is a d-dimensional feature sample. Fine. And this part also we have already discussed, that how the stages which are required to design a machine learning model. So the first step is nothing but the feature extraction stage, and the second one is nothing but I'm just talking about the vital stages. Okay, the feature extraction and the classification. There are also some in between stages there. So optional stages, like whatever the features, let's say you have extracted. Sometimes we used to extract some features, some irrelevant features, some redundant features. Okay, and for that the classifier may not behave properly, right? So what we can do is we can apply some stages, or the stages after this feature extraction, we call sometimes it as a feature reduction or feature selection stage. So what is the job of that stage is it will keep, or it will select the relevant features or the prominent features from the features whatever you have extracted directly from the images, and then that prominent features or the set of the good features will be passed to the classifier to decide the class level, right? So we are simply talking about right now classification. So then we'll discuss right now that what are the evaluation measures available to evaluate a classification model. So let's say for solving a particular problem, this image classification problem or this food image classification problem. So there are 4 different models, or maybe there may be 20 different models are there. So how will you evaluate that which model is the better one? We have to decide it here, right? So that which model is the better one. And sometimes also you need to provide also comparison, extensive comparison among different models, and you have to decide that which model is the better one. So for that, there are some performance measures which I will discuss. Before that, I would like to discuss the training and testing the part. So what's the job of this training part and what's the job of this testing part? So initially, we are given always a data set, and the data set, as you are solving a supervised classification problem, which is solving a classification problem, yes, it is supervised one. Why? Because output levels are given to us, and the output levels in case of classification is a discrete one. Okay, even if it is a multi-class classification also, maybe the output will be represented in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that. Or if it is a binary classification problem, that can be represented either in 0 or 1 or 1 or 2, or maybe even the names is fine, but it should be discrete one. The set should be discrete. Okay, so originally we are always given a data, And we generally divide the data into two different sets. One is training and one is testing. And there is something called as validation also. Fine. So that validation has some different meanings and different uses. Fine. But basically there are two sets. We divide the data set into one is training, one is testing. So why training is required? The training is required to build the model. So using this training samples, we'll build the model. Like I've shown you, there are some samples in graph and how to draw a straight line. So you have to draw the straight line, or you have to draw a classification model. Classification model can be of anything. So one of the ways is to draw a straight line, right? And by using the set of training samples, you have to draw or you have to design a model. So this is what the training is. And for testing, even if we are having the output levels, we will not pass the output to the model. Rather, we want to check the model or to verify the model, or to see that whether whatever the model is predicting is correct or not, right? So in testing, we'll pass the samples. In testing, whatever the testing samples in the testing set is, that is totally different from the training set, because originally we have divided and we have keep it aside. And right now, after the model built, we are passing one testing sample to the model, and we are just checking the behavior of the model on the unknown sample. So so what's the goal? What's the goal of a classification model over here? So if the classification model is doing good on training, is not doing good on testing, that is also not a good model. If the classification model is not doing good in training time, or is not doing good in testing time, that is also not a good model. So the goal in building a machine learning algorithm or a classification model is to perform well on the training and the testing set. That means the student should score a good mark in the class test as well as the final examination. That's what, right? So the class test, so the teacher is also, that's why we're calling it as a supervised learning algorithm, right? Because the teacher is always there to tell the student, yeah, no, you have done some wrong things, you correct it. So always there is an output given to the output, means there is a teacher always there who will guide you that yes, this is correct, this is correct, this is the correct answer, this is the correct answer. So slowly the student learns, and once you find that right now the student is fit for examination, final examination, then in final examination we do not provide answers, that we all know, right? So that's what testing is. So we do not provide any answers in case of but testing, and we have the answers. Otherwise, how will you correct it, right? How will you correct that whether he has done correct or not? So then at that time you have to check. So whatever, so there are two things over here. One is that actual output, one is the desired output. Right? The actual output or the predicted output will be predicted from the model, whatever you have designed, and there is the desired output or the target output is already there. You will match it. If there is a success, if there is a match, correct match, then you can call it as a success one. And if there is no matching, then you can call it as a misclassification, right? So the goal, as I mentioned, that is to perform, the goal of any machine learning algorithm or of a classifier is to perform well on both training as well as testing. Very, very important. And the error on the training data, okay, the error in the training data, that how many samples are correctly or misclassified. In case of training is nothing but it's called as training error. Error on the test data is called as test error. And the test error will indicate how well the model will perform on the new data, of course, right? How well the model will perform on the new data, on the unknown sample, which was not provided to the model during training. Okay, so and we call it as sometimes is a generalization power. So this generalization again is a very, very important point for a classifier. Okay, how it generalizes, how it performs on the new data or the unknown samples. If it performs well on the new data, then we call it as a good generalization. The model is having, or the classifier is having, good generalization capability. Okay, and if the test error is high, and so we can call it as the error is high. I'm talking about, so error and accuracy both are two different things, right? So accuracy high is good, error high is bad, right? Accuracy less is bad, error less is good, that you know, right? So test error is sometimes called as generalization error. So if my model is performing well on the test data, so I can call my model is having good generalization capability, right? If my model is not performing well, my model is performing very well in the training, my student is really doing good in the class test, but is not doing well in the final test, and there is a problem. Okay, and of course, if my student is not doing well in the class test, so we cannot expect even a good result in the final test, right? So that is also a problem. So we call both this problem is under training and overtraining, and the perfect term over here in machine learning is underfitting, overfitting. If a model has a low training error, the low training error means the model is really doing good in case of training, but in case of testing it is not doing good. So we call this problem is overfitting problem, and this overfitting is a major concern. So whenever we are designing something or whenever we are solving a real life problem, so we have to take care of this type of problems, which is known as overfitting. So in case of overfitting, so there will be a poor generalization, because that we have already discussed, because it will not behave well on the test data. So then what do you mean by this underfitting is, underfitting means, so in the class test also the student is not performing well. That means high training error, right? High training error. So of course, if the training is not good, so you cannot expect a good thing from test one. So this is what underfitting is, right? So it's very important, and this overfitting basically occurs due to several reasons, due to the model complexity. So you have to look, it generally occurs when the data basically is having lot of features compared to the lot of samples. Okay, so if the samples are very less, let's say I'm solving a problem and my data contains only 100 samples. Okay, sample 1 up to sample 100, and each of the sample contains 1,000 or 10,000 number of characteristics or features, right? So in that case, there is a high chance that the model will overfit, right? So then there are different ways to prevent overfitting or to overcome the overfitting problem. So I'll not discuss much into it today, because again it will take time to discuss what are the different ways to overcome this overfitting problem. Just I'm giving the notion behind this overfitting and underfitting, and the major concerns or the common concerns which are which you will face while designing this machine learning algorithm for solving real world problems. Right. So, and one of the ways is to divide the data, the training data, again into two sets, is nothing but training and validation, right? The testing set you should not touch. Okay, it will, you have to keep it aside as it is originally, once you divide the data set into two types. So then what you will do is, so you will train and as I mentioned, that you have to divide the data set, the training set, into again two different parts. Train into two different parts, training and validation. This validation over here will be acted as a test set. So what you will do, every time you will train the model, and corresponding validation output you will check corresponding validation output. Okay, so the moment, so there may be cases, there may be a situation. So as you go down the line, if you see over here, the more you train, the student may be in the class test, or maybe the more you provide the coaching, he or she may provide you good result in case of class test, right? But there is no guarantee that sometimes overtraining also creates problems, right? That we all know, overtraining. So, so you have to check all the time that yes, the training error is going down and down and down, and the moment the validation error starts increasing, you have to stop training over there, because once it starts increasing, okay, so it will then increase. So so you have to stop the training at that moment, right? And this is the job of the validation set, and this is what is called early stopping, and this is one of the ways to avoid overfitting problem, right? So coming to the performance measures, whatever we have just now talked about, training, testing, the problems related to this while designing this model, classification model, like overfitting and underfitting. And there are also several other various ways to avoid overfitting problem, and this is the simplest way, as I mentioned, this early stopping is. And now the question is, how will you evaluate a model, classification model? So for that we need the help of a confusion matrix. Okay, the name itself says it's a confusion matrix, but it is pretty easy to understand. So I'm just now showing you a confusion matrix for a two-class classification problem that later on you can go through some of the links to know about the multi-class classification matrix. So let us, for example, so what is this confusion matrix? So we'll see, and what are the contents of this confusion matrix also we'll see. Okay, so this confusion matrix is basically, as I mentioned, that we are drawing right now a confusion matrix. So this is nothing but the output of any classification model, binary classification model. Fine. So let's say the classification model, whatever you know, is nothing but a naive Bayes classifier tilted. A naive Bayes classifier, let's say I have used to solve a problem. That problem is a medical image classification problem. Let's say medical image class or medical data classification problem, and medical classification problem. So it's a normal, abnormal classification problem, binary classification problem, and here it is positive and negative. The classes are positive and negative. There are two classes. Okay, and the elements of this matrix are four. These elements actually, this matrix contains four different elements, four very important elements, and we need to understand each of the element in detail, right? So one is true positive, another one is false negative. I'll discuss one by one. And one is false positive, and one is true negative. True positive, true negative. As I mentioned, there are two classes. The class names are positive and negative. If the person is having any disease, then it is positive. In medical, the positive means, and the negative means the person is not having any disease, right? So these are the two classes, but the major contents are here. The major contents are in between. This true positive, false negative, and this is false positive, true negative. So let us discuss these terms one by one. So if you look at the labels I have given in the left hand side and the top side also, there is something called as actual and there is something called as predicted. Okay, so actual and predicted says that, so your model will generate something, right? Your model. So simply calculating the accuracy is very important, right? So how will you calculate the accuracy of a model? I will calculate the accuracy of a model. Can somebody, let's say my training, let's say originally I am having 100 number of samples, right? I divided the samples into two categories, training and testing, 70 and 30. The 70% of the samples means out of 100 sample means 70 samples, right? The 70 samples I have used for training the model, for building the model, right? And 30% of the samples I will use for testing the model. So let's say out of the 30 sample, I will evaluate the model by using the testing set. Okay. So then out of the 30 samples, what I could see that my model predicted 28 samples correctly. 28 samples predicted correctly out of 30 samples, right? So can somebody right now just suggest me or can just guess that what should be the accuracy of the model in terms of percentage? Can somebody guess that what should be the accuracy? You can also write in the chat box. You can write the same in the chat box. Yeah, so I could see some of the results in the chat box. So thank you so much for responding. Yeah, so in terms of percentage, I asked in terms of percentage. So what's the formula? So out of 30 samples, my model predicted 28 samples correctly, right? 28 samples correctly. So the 28 maybe of, I don't know what's the class level for those 28 samples, but I know that out of 30 samples, maybe from both the categories, out of 30 samples, 28 samples from both the categories are correctly classified, right? 28 samples. So then the accuracy will be very simple, that 28 divided by 30 multiplied by 100 in terms of percentage, if you want to find out in terms of percentage. 28 are correctly classified from both the classes, divided by 30 multiplied by 100. So just calculate what's the output is, sorry. So right now we will relate the same thing over here. Okay, you in terms of true positive, true negative, false negative, and false positive. Okay, so let us discuss all the terms in detail. What's the meaning of true positive? True positive says that how many samples? How many samples? Let's say I'm considering an ideal case. Let's say out of, let me write over here. Let's say my total number of samples are 100. Fine. Training samples 70. Testing samples, sorry. Testing samples are 30. And I'm considering a very ideal data set. Ideal data set means it's a two-class, let's say, a classification data set. Two-class classification data set. And my class 1 contains here, let's say, 35 number of samples. Class 2, okay, or that means 35 samples belong to class 1, or rest 35 samples belong to, okay. So this is why I'm considering there's an ideal data set over here, or a very balanced data set, because in real time, or in real time, you may not find this type of situation. You may find one class contains more number of samples than another class. Again, you have to look for some class balancing techniques. So class balancing technique is so important. Okay, otherwise your classifier will be biased towards one class, that you also know. Okay, so if I will take the 70 samples from one class for training, or 7 or 5 samples for one class, okay, for training, and I will build the model, so it will simply bias towards class 1, right? Class 1. So for example, if I'll solve one type of problem in the class, and I'll solve about hundreds of questions, or let's say 70 questions from one type and 5 questions from another type, so there will be biasness. Okay, there will be biasness in the class. So that's what it is. The biasness is. But for simplicity, I have considered a very balanced data set. So training samples contain 70. So out of the 70 samples, like say C1 contains, class 1 contains 35 samples, class 2 contains 35 samples. And similarly in testing, class 1 contains, let's say, 15 samples, and class 2 contains 15 samples. Right? Then, if you look at this, matrix over here, so left-hand side, this is actual, the right-hand side, so the top side is predicted, and the classes are positive, positive, negative, negative. Okay. So we'll discuss one by one term. True positive, right? So true positive means the classes are 2, and C1 represents a positive class, C2 represents a negative class. Fine. How many positive samples? How many positive samples are correctly identified as positive? So how many positive samples are there? 15 samples. Fine. So out of 15, how many are correctly classified? So here you will replace a value. So maybe, let's say our model, maybe naive Bayes classifier provided that 14 samples from the first class are correctly classified as positive, right? 14 samples, and 1 sample is misclassified to negative sample. So that's why the name is falsely negative, false negative. How many positive samples? How many positive samples are there? 15 positive samples. Out of 15 positive samples, 14 are correctly classified, and that's why the name is true positive, right? And 1 is misclassified to which class? To negative class. So that's why the name is false negative. So how many positive samples are incorrectly classified as negative? That is what is false negative. Don't be confused. So next is how many negative classes are correctly classified, right? Both the classes are there, right? So out of these 15, 14 are correctly classified. Maybe in class 2 represents negative here. So let's say 13 are correctly classified. So this is another class, and we are calling it as a negative, but the name is true negative. True negative. That means how many negative samples are correctly classified. Remember, how many negative samples are correctly classified? 13 out of how many? 15. Then other two are incorrectly classified to which class? To positive class. So that is why the name is falsely positive. It was originally negative, but it is right now falsely positive. So that's why the name is false positive. So if you add the rows, the values in the rows, 14 plus 1, it will become 15, and that is nothing but the total number of samples of class 1. And if you add the rows of the second row, 13, here it is 2, that will become 15, and that is nothing but the number of samples in class 2. I hope you have at least got some idea regarding this, designing this confusion matrix even after prediction of this model, of your model. So after prediction of the model, so you can implement it, you can implement also, and there are also some functions available in Python, MATLAB, R, that also you can use, or you can implement by yourself, but somebody else has implemented the same thing, and that's why you are using a function. Fine. So I hope these terms are right now at least well known to you. True positive, how many positive samples are correctly classified, and how many positive samples are misclassified to negative, that is known as false negative. And if you add these rows, you'll get the value 15. And if you add these values, so it will become right now the number of samples in class 2. So right now, if I'll ask you that how many samples are correctly classified, so what will be the formula to know that how many samples are correctly classified? Can somebody tell me the formula right now? Can you derive a formula that how many samples in terms of true positive, false negative, true negative are correctly classified out of all samples provided? I mean, I'm out of all testing sample right now. We're discussing testing, right? Can somebody guess, or can somebody answer me? Yes, I could see lot of correct answers. I could see a lot of correct answers in the chat box. So let me go to, yeah, and the out, and then the yes, and I could see a lot of correct answers in the chat box, in both the links. Thank you so much. Yes, so right now we'll see some performance measure related to this. This is very important to evaluate any classification model. So starting with sensitivity. So there are so many. So let us start with accuracy, which you already know, right? Accuracy. Okay. And here it is TP plus TN. Fine. Why TP plus TN? Because these are TP plus TN means correctly classified from one class and correctly classified from another class. So if you want to find out how many are correctly classified in total, then that will be definitely true positive plus true negative. And if you add all the true positive plus false negative plus true positive plus true negative plus false positive, that will become 30, right? That will become 30. If you add the number of rows, that will be the number of classes for class 1. I'm sorry, the number of samples for class 1. If you add the values in class row 2, that will become the number of samples per class 2. And if you add all those, that will become the total number of testing samples, right? So that's why the formula for this accuracy is, true positive plus true negative divided by true positive plus true, all the four terms. And two very important things you have to know, that sensitivity and specificity is a very, very important performance measure to evaluate the classification models. And the sensitivity is otherwise called as true positive rate. Okay, and the specificity is otherwise called as true negative rate. So true positive rate, true negative rate. True positive rate is very simple. Is nothing but true positive rate. So how many positive samples are correctly classified out of all positive samples, right? So we can easily formulate, right? So sensitivity we are talking about, right? So true positive rate. So just listen one more time, that how many positive samples are correctly classified out of all positive samples. So the formula will be true positive divided by true positive plus false negative, right? So this is what is sensitivity is. So then coming to specificity, which is called as true negative rate, and in other way we can say how many negative samples are correctly classified out of all negative samples. So then who can say what will be the formula for specificity? How many negative samples are correctly classified out of all negative samples? Let's see. Yes, absolutely. I could see some correct answers in the comment box, but yeah, those who have written true negative divided by fp plus tn, this is dangerous. So those who have written true negative divided by bracket starts, then true negative plus positive is correct, because otherwise we all know that what will happen if you write true negative plus divided by false positive plus 2n. So the correct formula is true negative divided by in bracket. I can understand that everybody has written the correct answer, only brackets have missed out. That is the correct answer, right? So thank you so much, all of you. And similar, so these are all performance measures. Similarly, there is something called as precision. There is precision, which is nothing but called as true positive divided by true positive plus false positive, right? This one. So you can also check other measures which are derived from this confusion matrix, like F1 score, MCC coefficient. So there are a lot of things which you can go through and which you can easily understand, right? So this is a figure which I have taken it somewhere from internet just to show you. Yeah, so the performance measures we have discussed for a classification model. Similarly, there are also performance measure for clustering problems. There are also performance measures for regression problems. Okay, in regression, basically we used to we used to consider some error values. Error in terms of absolute error, mean square sum or sum error. So a lot of things are there. Sum of the squared error. This is what I would like to show you. Why? Because this is a very important thing. So what are the tools available in machine learning, deep learning, or whatever this artificial intelligence we have? So there are machine learning languages so people are using right now. So here MATLAB is missing. So MATLAB we can add over here as one of the, also Python or MATLAB. So machine learning tools are there in TensorFlow, Scikit-learn, Weka is all there. So these are all tools, right? So it will be my sincere request to all of you, do not use any tools for even whatever Madam has suggested yesterday, or whatever I will even discuss today, this k nearest neighbor classifier. Please try to implement those algorithms, whatever will be taught maybe in the next 2-3 days. So what you can do is you can try to implement the same using any language, whatever is compatible with, whatever you are compatible with, maybe Python, R, MATLAB, whatever may be. So it will be and do not even encourage your students to write the code, write or to use the functions whatever is available initially, right? So because if you use the functions, you will not get that feel. So machine learning is so important to understand. So it is very what is happening, so how it lands. So that is why there are so many tools available, but it is not that easy even sometimes to understand. Yes, tools are there, of course. You can use simply the functions and you will give the input and you will get the output. But sometimes you will not be able to understand that what is happening inside this tool, right? So that you have to understand. So for that, initially, it's my sincere request to all of you, please go through all the algorithms carefully, all the steps carefully, try to mimic all the statements, whatever is there in the algorithm in any programming languages. You run it, even if you are taking lot of time also, that is also not a problem. But you can also refer some of the resources there in the online. So lot of things can happen, and you can learn a lot of things slowly. Okay. And then there are some deep learning tools like Keras, PyTorch is there. There are some analytics tool, visualization tool. So you can go through whatever is available. And this is a suggestion from my side to all of you, that spend little time every day on machine learning tools and algorithms, and become a machine learning engineer or a scientist. So this is a very important thing nowadays, because artificial intelligence is everywhere. As I mentioned, that when you wake up in the morning and whenever you are opening something in the mobile, so that's what, and that is also built using any machine learning algorithm is running behind that app, right? So we have to at least understand few things behind this. So, and there are two other suggestions. I should not read it out. You should read it out. If you like it, then you can follow it. Okay. So it is very important thing. So that's why the second one, I always prefer that learn steadily rather than short burst for longevity. So just it's very important for machine learning. Okay. And for this classification model, regression model, and this deep learning as well. So I would also like to show you one video right now to you. But Amazon, I think you all have known this name, right? Amazon, because everybody is right now shopping, is using this Flipkart and Amazon, and watching movies in Amazon Prime and all these things. So I will also show you one video which is very interesting, and it is not yet implemented in India, maybe yet to be. And but there are so many applications. This is also one of the greatest application of this deep learning right now. Maybe we last day some other professor, other speaker will discuss about this. Deep learning is a very important, very interesting concept nowadays people are using. And so I would just now like to show you. So just look at the videos, what is happening inside these videos and how interesting it is. Please look at carefully. So I hope you all have enjoyed this video, and look at the importance of, I paused right 3 times, deep learning, sensor fusion, and also it is pretty similar to the problem which is nothing but as automatic car driving. Automatic car driving. Mercedes-Benz is really doing great work regarding this. One of my students is also working in this particular group of these automated self-driving cars, right? So, but this is where, I mean, this is what is so important, or machine learning is, and you just see how interesting it is. There's no need to stand in the queue. You just go and just pick up the products and just put it in your bag and just simply go out, and you have to pay the fees through online. Everything is possible because of this deep learning, this machine learning, this image processing, this computer vision. So see the importance in real life. It has been implemented in lot of applications. So starting from this for the self-driving cars to this COVID-19 I've talked about today. So we have also solved 2-3 problems regarding this COVID-19. So it's really interesting. You will really enjoy once you start it. So I think the session was from 10 to 11:30,
Sir,
right?
yes, sir. So we have to go for break.
Okay. So in the next session, I will start directly with the classification, with the K-Nearest-Neighbor classification technique, followed by a regression
Linear
fundamentals.
regression. Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Sir,
Okay.
15
So thank
minutes
you.
late. Actually, 11:35. Shall we
Yeah.
start at 11:50 or 11:40?
Yeah.
It
No,
depends
the
on
50, ma'am. No problem.
11:50. Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. Thank you so much, all, for listening.
Yes, sir. Hello?
Hello, hi, madam.
Ah,
Yes.
okay. We'll join at 11:50, sir.
Yeah, sure.